Good morning, good morning. Great to see everybody here. Mike fired him up, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Glad we don't have to sing.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Bob, you're from Canada. You've lived in New York, Los Angeles, London, all the places in the world. Where do you live now?
Nashville, Tennessee.
How about that?
Yes. And I'll tell you why. The reason why I live in Nashville, Tennessee is because of Mike Ferris and Paul Brown and people like that. And I tell my friends, this town has more talent per square inch than any place I've ever been in my life.
Record producers have to have 1 foot in art, 1 foot in commerce. They cannot be unaware of the latter, but they pay attention to the former mostly. How have you balanced those two through the years? Or are there any stories where those two came into real conflict?
I don't think I've actually balanced it very well at all, to tell you the truth. And I'm not trying to be funny. Every time I've tried to be successful, I have fallen flat on my face, which is why I have such a big nose. But every time that I've just tried to do something that's really great, because I felt I was doing something that was really great, I've actually had a shot at success, and a few times I've had some. So I think keeping your eye on commerce and trying to be an artist at the same time is a very difficult line to walk. And I think it's a dangerous one, because if you fall too far to one side, the other will take over your life, or you'll lose the other, and that one will take over your life.
The music industry, big word, the label system constantly comes into under criticism for putting commerce first, and if art happens, so be it, but they really want to make millions of dollars. Has that been your experience, or do you think that's a myth?
It's an interesting thing. You know, a friend of mine was one of the guys who started A&M Records, which is a very big label once upon a time. And he was noted as being, his name is Jerry Moss, and he was noted as being one of the great record men of all time. And I remember riding with him in a car in LA when he said, "I'm done, I'm out of the business." And I said, "How is that possible? This has been your life, how can you leave the business?" He said, "Well, when we started, we were nothing but a bunch of passionate amateurs." And he said, "Now the business is run by cold-hearted professionals. There's no room for us anymore." So, and I think that's really kind of true, sadly. You know, and there's not a record company person you'll meet who thinks of themselves that way. If you sit and talk to any of them, they'll say, "Man, I'm about the music. I'm a music fan. I love your stuff. I love this. I love that." But at the end of the day, they work for public corporations that have to make quarterly results that measure how they do by their profits and not necessarily by the effect that they have on the world culturally, which is the way it used to be once upon a time. I like the amateurs myself.
Well, hopefully we can circle back around to where things are going. But before we do that, when you look at some of the largest acts that you've worked with, Kiss, Pink Floyd, Alice Cooper, the thing that struck me as a common thread was a big sense of theatricality. Is that something that you're attracted to?
Well, you know, my feeling is that all art is dramatic. That, you know, art is defined, I think, as the kind of the conscious arrangement of sounds or colors or forms or words to be able to produce an effect in other people. It's an external expression of somebody's internal passion and insight, right? So just by definition, you're moving people. That is a dramatic thing to do. So it's hard for me to see anything as not being dramatic, and maybe that's a little bit because I was in the theater when I was a kid and stuff, and okay. I love that. But yeah, I'm more drawn to drama than understatement. Yes.
Well, do you think Alice Cooper or Kiss could have been been what they were without the makeup and the theater?
No. Mm-hmm. You know, they are. That's who they are. That is what they are. I mean, Alice Cooper really was a performance artist. You know, when I first saw that band in New York City, it was September 8th, 1970. I know the day. And I went into Max's Kansas City in this club. I walked into the club. Everybody in the club had coal black eyes and spider eye makeup, and they were all wearing spandex and had black fingernails and black hair, and it was like walking into a Hieronymus Bosch painting, you know. And I sat at the table. I was just this hippie from Toronto, and these guys came on stage and they did crazy things, and somewhere in all of that there was some pretty interesting music too, very dramatic music. It just was fighting to find its way out. But I said, this is performance art, you know, and it's not really. When I went back to my boss, who had actually sent me to get rid of them, by the way. My boss had sent me to New York to say, get rid of Alice Cooper. They wanted him to produce them. And I said, no worries, boss. You know, and so I saw the show, and then right after the show, I went running up the stairs to the dressing room, and I went, we'll do it! we'll do it. You guys are amazing. And they said, well, we think you guys are amazing too, you know. And then I walked outside and I went, I am so fired. So I got on a plane and I went back to Toronto and ran into Jack Richardson's office. I said, you know, like any teenager, any good teenager, you don't understand. This was not rock and roll. There were no t-shirts, no jeans. They had sets, they had lights, they had stuff. Everybody had spider eyes, there was spandex, and they all had black hair. I said, this isn't rock and roll. It's the start of a cultural movement. And Jack said, okay, enough already. If you like it so much, you do it. Which is actually how I got the start of my career.
And
so, yeah.
the show that changed your life.
Yeah, a little bit.
It sounds to me like raw enthusiasm has been a driving force in your career.
Listen, if you can't be enthusiastic about what you're doing, then stop now. Because you know, I don't want to swear in public. Can I stand up? Is it okay? Because it's hard for me to sit still. I don't want to swear in public, so I won't. I'll just use the term frickin', if that's okay with everybody. But my approach to life right now is that everything is freaking awesome. It's awesome. Is anybody in here hungry? Well, you know what I mean. Are you starving? No. Is anybody cold? Not really. Are you feeling okay? Pretty much, right? Are you safe? Are you worried that a bomb is going to drop on your head right now? I don't think so. There's these lights on here. Somebody just pushed a little button and all these lights came on. And I'm talking to you and it's really loud. All of that is freaking awesome. It's amazing. Our life from the time we wake up in the morning until the time we go to bed is just amazing. And we need to be aware of that. We need to be energized by it. We need to be inspired by it. And we need to try and help it be even more amazing.
Have you ever? I can imagine some of the artists that you might have encountered over the years who are so inward-looking, who are dour, who take themselves so seriously that kind of speech might be just not what.
Well, but you would be amazed. You know, I just did an interview yesterday for a book about Peter Gabriel, who everybody sees as being this very, very proper, you know, very gentle, very sort of interior kind of English gentleman and stuff. And he's got a fantastic sense of humor. We had a great. You like studio stories? You want a studio story? So we were doing Peter Gabriel's first solo album. There's a song called Salisbury Hill, which you may know, and we couldn't get a last line of the chorus. The chorus was, "Son," he said, "make your life a taxi, not a tomb." I said, "Wrong. That is not going on this record. We will never have the words taxi, not a tomb on an album." So then he's like, well, you know, that's basically what I said. It's not happening. Come up with something better. So we just went around and around. He came in, "Has anyone here heard of Officer Muldoon?" I said, "No, that's not happening." And then he said, "Well, you know, there's this terrible backward masking controversy, as they would say." And he said, "How about we do this? So let's do something backwards." I said, "Okay." So we did Zdrakeb Nadro Kareth Tog Voi Loof, which, by the way, is "Fool, you've got the record on backwards." But he was great. We laughed the whole time. We gaffer taped him to a chair one day, as one does, and rolled him out into the street. We were in Toronto. We rolled him out into Hazelton Avenue. It was about 9 o'clock at night. And instead of standing there and kind of going, "Oh, come on, guys, you know, get me out," he took off down the street. And then I thought, you know, oh my God, I've killed Peter Gabriel. So I went running down the street after him, and he's going down the street fast on this chair, just using his legs like this, you know. And a car comes alongside of him. They pull down the window and they go, "Can we help you?" And he said, "Yes, can you show me the way to Bay Street, please?" So you'd be surprised, you know, and part of my job is to tap into that, you know, is to try to tap into that energy and that playfulness and that imagination. You know, I want them, you know, first of all, I want the artists to feel that they're in a safe environment, that those that are allowed to be called artists, not everybody gets that word, but I want them to feel they're in a safe environment. I want them to feel that fun is okay. You can do it and you don't have to feel like an idiot. And I also want them to feel that crying is okay too. You can do whatever you want to do. Lean back, I got you.
So it sounds like the only thing that's not acceptable is non-provocative things that an atmosphere.
I think the only thing not acceptable is just not bringing it, not bringing your game. That's not acceptable.
You studied classical music early on. How's that shaped the way your records have come out sounding?
Oh, hugely. And I would say, you know, my mom was like, my mom, who would be very proud right now, she passed away a couple of months ago, and she loved this kind of stuff, you know. So Mom, she was a fantastic pianist, like a concert grade pianist who was too shy to play live. So as a kid, I used to crawl under the piano. I would sit there and listen to my mom do the Warsaw Concerto, which, if you don't know it, go look it up. It's just so powerful, you know. Or play, you know, Debussy, or just, or you know, just whatever came from her fingers was so large sounding. And sitting underneath a big grand piano, you know, that's a big sound, right? So from my first recollections of music, it was always this incredibly dramatic thing, and I found classical music, to me, was the first heavy metal. Mm-hmm. It was. Like Tchaikovsky wrote, you know, I'll tell you what, the Prelude to Romeo and Juliet. Check this out. This may be the first heavy metal piece, but it's the one that goes bum ba-da-dum, bum ba-da-dum, bum ba-da-dum, bum ba-da-dum. You know, anyway, never mind. Check it out. So,
more drama.
Over to you, Craig.
A start like that in music clearly left you with a stamp that music is a sonic thing, and you have worked in a world of popular music where it is perceived as a song thing, and an artist conveying a song, people very attached to lyrics. Do you ever worry that that popular music has nudged the instrumental, the timbral, the quality, the structural stuff kind of too far to the side, instead of putting the song at the center of everything?
No, I think song is always at the center of everything. I may not be as moved by as many songs now as I used to be before, and I don't think it's because I'm an old fuddy-duddy, but I do think it's because there's a tremendous amount of repetition and sameness. I think that because of that thing we talked about before, which is that the record companies have to be able to have a predictable income. The only way to predict the future is repeat the past. Mm-hmm. So, you know, unless you're like a visionary or some kind of savant, right? So, unfortunately, there's a lot of repeating. It worked last month, let's do it this month. And so, I think there's a lot of, but the song is always at the heart. It's that, and we choose to, you know, we choose to be in a business that's about songs. And I keep having to remind people that, what is a song? But a song is a story set to music. It has language. So, just to have a nice melody and lousy lyrics, that doesn't work. To disregard either component doesn't work. And the perfect song is when every syllable is on the note it belongs to perfectly. So the song, you know, a song has to travel where language and music are walking hand in hand in perfect harmony. That's very poetic. Yeah.
The theme today is next, and I'm curious who one or two names that you have worked with or encountered who you believe have a very progressive next idea about music and culture.
I think Troy Carter is next. I think, anybody know who Troy Carter is? And if you don't, look him up. He's Lady Gaga's manager. He may be the smartest of the new wave of managers out there, and he's very tech savvy, very much invested in new technologies, and I think nobody understands the concept of growing an audience and keeping an audience in touch with the artist more than he or Lady Gaga. I think a young man named Benji Rogers is next. He's got this company called Pledge Music, which allows artists to go out to their community and reach out for help. For pledges to help them to make the things that they want to make. I think that's very important. I gave you a couple of other names, and now I'm blanking. Who?
Well, that's okay, but that segues to probably what we have time for here, and that is this crowdfunding, artists raise their own funds to make their own record, own it, and then license it out. Is that a very potent part of the future of music, and is that leading to more freedom, more independence, and better music?
Yeah, well, whatever the last mile is, whether it's license it out or it's some other form, and as we evolve, it will take other forms. But I think that from the beginning of time, when you were doing something cool, whatever it was, but let's focus on the arts, when you were doing something really cool, somebody found it attractive enough to write a check or to give you money so that you could keep doing it, and they did it because they wanted to see more of it. And then as we progressed, those people who were patrons, basically, who gave money so people could create art, they started to get smart, and they went, well, wait a minute, I gave them the money, and now I've got the art, and oh, by the way, I could probably resell this for more than I paid for it, so now I'm gonna turn it into a profit center. And so people became patrons, but what they were really buying was access to something of value that they could resell. And that's kind of the way we grew. I'm doing it very fast because we're running out of time, but that's kind of the way we grew to where we are right now, where in the world we're just leaving, people give you money to own the right to resell your stuff. And I guess that's okay, but I think if we asked Van Gogh today whether he got a piece of the $250 million that was just fetched by his last painting, he'd say, hell no. And you wonder, if the art is being used now for something other than its intrinsic value. So I love the idea that it is a direct relationship between the creator and the people who appreciate the creation. And I think that that's a great way to start. It's the way we all started. I want to tell you that when I used to play in the basement of the Penny Farthing on Yorkville Avenue in Toronto, Joni Mitchell was upstairs, Neil Young was next door, Bob Dylan was down the street, Gordon Lightfoot was next door to him. All of them playing, and every one of them, I guarantee you, knew the name of everybody that was sitting in the audience that night. They shook those hands. Those people fell in love. And those people told other people who told other people who created careers for these people. And that's why they're still out there doing it. Because it's their relationship to their audience that gives them value.
And in terms of carrying it on, you've been very active in arts and music education and clearly care a lot about it.
Well, I think, one of the things that we have to understand, especially in the United States of America, is that our greatest export is not military might, it's not energy, it's not steel, it's our culture. And it's the truth. And the greatest tool we have for improving the world is by exporting the good parts of our culture. Now, if we're not going to support the development of that culture, sooner or later, we will become culturally bankrupt. So, and what we have to do, this is our responsibility, all of us as citizens, is we have to catch the little signs like symptoms of a cold. Even when, something as small as the band room used to be open till 5, now it closes at 4. We have to fight that. We have to fight this sort of death by 1,000 cuts that's being imposed on us now. It's tough times. People are having a hard time balancing budgets. We understand. But culture is the most valuable commodity we have, and as a country, it's our duty to support it.
And our time is up. Bob Ezrin, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, sir. A great conversation.